Roger Boixader and Neil Bacardip. To us about real-world RBAC complex project implemented using Guillotina. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thank you. Thanks to you. Well, first of all, thanks to the Plone conference and Code Syntax for the tremendous effort that you have done. Thank you for making that possible. We are really proud to be here. And before talking about this project that we have implemented using Guillotina, I don't know if you know what Guillotina is, but first a little bit of who we are, right? This philosophical question. We are Roger Boixadell and Neil Bacardit, and we are the CTOs from Iskra. And basically what we do is to manage a little bit the technical projects that we have at Iskra, right? Roger for the front end, and I'm taking charge of the back end. And let's get into hand, right? So what we are gonna talk about is one project that we did using Guillotina. I don't know if you know what Guillotina is, but basically it's an asynchronous Python based in Plone. So we all like traversal here, but I think that nobody knows what traversal is, right? So when you're talking about traversal, it's okay, but is it the Django? No, it's not Django, it's not routing. Okay, so is it the fast API? Or no, excuse me, it's a traversal. What is this? So, okay, traversal, what it is? It's a tree, right? You navigate through files like in a tree. You navigate through files like in a new Linux directory. You go through items and folders like you will do in your computer, right? It seems easy. It seems something that you will do in your everyday life because you are used to search things like that. But nowadays, all the programmers, or the majority of the developers, they do not know about this kind of technology. Actually, they use Pyramid, or they use which was based in traversal, but they use Django Fast API because that's the most famous solution, right? So why Guillotina help us? Well, it helps us because it has this traversal and because of its architecture and all these functionalities that we have here. So really, what is Guillotina? Well, Guillotina, as I said, is a traversal kind of directory. What else do we have? Well, we have the high-level API based in Plone. So who doesn't like Plone, right? Is it the same? Is it based on Plone? But instead of handling the resources synchronously, it uses async queue, right? That means that you can have more requests per second because with the same amount of pods, but because it waits for the future conditions to happen. It handles mouse objects better as well, so you can have millions of objects stored in your Postgres, where I'm gonna talk more about the storage that we have. And it's scalable. You can scale it really easy. It's a transactional as well, so if something goes wrong, you just abort the transaction, abort all the changes, and you are fine to go. What else? Pickles are your friend. So Guillotina stores all its objects in a plain database, in a table, in a plain. So we save pickles. We do not save any kind of relationship between the objects. They are all plain objects. And this is based in a concept where every URL maps to an object. So you have a URL, and this URL maps to an object. This is similar than Plone. Actually, kind of the same. A tree, I mean, who doesn't like a tree, right? So this is traversal. This is what we do at Guillotina. So how the request flow works. So first of all, we go through a traverse, we go through the file, we make sure that we get the file, we get the view, execute the view, commit the results. If there is a commit, or there is a patch, or there is a post, you commit the result. If not, abort, and then you execute all the features because there are features. We're gonna talk more about this in the next slides. So which is the architecture? Well, it's based on the Plone REST API. Which storage can you use? You can use Postgres or CockroachDB. Which kind of catalog do you use? You can use Elasticsearch or Postgres. And the Elasticsearch, you need the features to happen. So you index all your data after the transaction is done. You execute that in a future. But you could do that in the same transaction as well if you choose that. You can do that because sometimes you make some changes into some objects and you want them indexed at the same once the request has finished, when the transaction is done. You can do that as well. Cache, Redis, and memory, and blobs. You can use S3, buckets, or GCS, Google Cloud Storage, and DB blobs. You can save it on the DB as well. So it's all out of the box, right? You can easily integrate Elasticsearch. You can easily integrate S3 or GCS just with a little piece of code. There are a lot of examples. It's easy to use. That's why we choose Guillotina to do that project. And what I wanted to explain is that about the permissions and the security policy that we have. Again, really similar to Plone, right? We have roles, we have permissions, and we have principals, right? Principals, what are the principals? Are the users or the groups? The principals are the ID of these users or these groups, easy. Roles, it's a group of permissions. So one principal can have multiple roles or can have a role, or a principal can have a permission. And then we can configure these roles and permissions and principals in a code configuration. You can do it inside of your code, or you can do it in a user-provided global configuration that it's in a global aspect, or then you can use it, you can set these resources, you can set this security policy in the same resource. Similar than Plone, right? So we have the settings, which allow, deny, allow single, and unset. That's because a traversal is a tree, right? So if you apply this permission in a trunk, and you make the setting allowed, it means that all these children will inherit this permission or this role, right? Same with deny, but the other way around. If you have denied, then you will deny this permission. Allow single is the same than allow, but without inheritance. So if you have the trunk or you have the primary leaf on your traversal, then you assign this allow single, and all the permissions will not be inherit. Of all these children will not inherit. And then you set, you remove the setting. You can just do that, right? Basic permissions, same than Plone. Access content, view content, modify content, delete content, and add content. Access content needed for traversing and getting index. It means that it's like in new Linux, right? If you do a CD in a folder and you keep doing CD, you have some permissions, right? This permission will be access content. If you are getting the resource, will be view content, and you are modifying it, modify, delete, and add content. If you have to add some content to a folder, then you will do an add content. And then basic roles, which are the basic roles that we have in Guillotina. We have Guillotina Anonymous. All the users by default will have this role here. It means that they are not authenticated, and that may be useful in some situations where you want to show some resources, even though if it's an anonymous user. Then we have Guillotina Reader, which they have basic permissions to read, access an object. Guillotina Owner, that has add, access, read, delete an object. When you create an object yourself, so if a principal creates an object, automatically you assign this Guillotina Owner role, that we have all these roles, because if not, no one could delete this object. Imagine that the root that has a lot of permissions removes this role from the guy that has created this object, then no one will have access to that object, and it's going to be there. So you have to act with carefully. Indexing, yeah, we all know that indexing is something that's difficult sometimes. And what is the security here? It's kind of the same. When you index, as I said before, if you're using Elasticsearch or Postgres, it doesn't matter. You need to know who can access that resource, because if you don't have access, you don't have access. So you should not return this object here. So you have these access roles and access users, which is indexed in the same object. And with that field, you query that field and you return the object. This is done automatically out of the box by Guillotina. Guillotina manage for you this security query. It adds all these fields that you need in order to get the object or not. So, and you can configure that query as well. You can. It's all configurable, but by yourself. So now I'm gonna explain you what is Sharpa, but I'm not gonna do it. Roger is gonna do it. That's the main part of the thing, right?
Okay, thanks, Neil. Neil explained about what is Guillotina, and Guillotina is the tool that we use to build this project. This project is for our customers, and the Sharpa is a web tool solution to map an entry company and evaluate the abilities of its employees. What's the meaning, or not? What is the goal about this project? For example, a company wants to evaluate which capacities their employees has, and then they can create all the mapping of their company in this project. After that, first of all, they create all the employees that they have in the application, and after that they can create the organization chart. This is the most important thing about this project, because it's how they organize their company. Usually the company has different levels about different different levels at the company, that the bosses know that manage some teams, or you can manage different teams, or you can manage a workplace, no, and you can distribute your company in the different way. To show this better, we can see our test environment, and here we can see an example of a company. No, first of all, we have the main team, that in this case it's called direction, that it's the two workers that manage all the company. In this case, these workers can access to all the information that at above and below them. In this case, the workers only can access to the teams and the workplaces, not to the workers directly, because our customer wants this. This is a limitation. No, it's not because we need Guillotina limitation. It's not it's a customer limitation. And after that, we can distribute all the teams and manage all our company. For example, then we have another team with different workers. That inside we have another team. That here we can see a workplace. That in the difference between work teams and the workplace is the team is for more than one worker, and a workplace it's only for one worker. No, this is to allow us to draw the very complex companies, because in some cases a worker can manage some teams, but they don't want to see the teammate, for example. No, but the teammate we need to create again, and with the worker, the workplaces and the teams, we can manage this situation. No, and here, for example, this worker manage all these teams. That inside the teams we have more workplaces and more teams that manage another teams. No, for example, here we have a maintenance, the boss's maintenance team, and inside this we have the maintenance team. No, and in this case we can draw all our company and make the levels about permissions of each worker. After that, we need to evaluate all these workers. No, and here we have 3 different type of objects. We can come back here. And here we have all the objects that we have in this project. First of all, we have the company, that represents the company. Then we have workers, teams, and place of work. That's these 3 objects. It's to create the organization chart. But the workers are outside in the traversal. We have a folder that it's to define all the workers, because each worker it's mapped to an user, and with their ID we can set or deny some permissions, or give some permissions, and teams and place of work. After that, we have tests, surveys, and studies. And a study is when, for example, the company wants to create a test for all company for October. No, and in October I want to evaluate own company. I will create a study, and in this case I will choose, okay, in this study I will evaluate this team, and the other team, and I want to evaluate this test and all the tests that I want to evaluate, because in each test we evaluate some capacities for each employee. Because, for example, if I want to know if my employee is good for leadership, I want to know, no? And I choose the test that evaluates, in this case, this capacity in this moment, no? And then we can create, for example, here, no, it's a dashboard, create a new study, and we can choose all the teams that we have, all the workplace that we have, and finally the tests that we want to evaluate. There are several tests, and each test evaluates different capacities. Finally, we have set the initial date, the end date, and the visualization date. This is important because the visualization date, it's the date that the employees can see their results. First of all, only that manager can see these results and the employee can't after this date. This is important because when the users answer the test and create the objects about each capacity, we need to deny the access content and VO content for these objects. And after the date, we have a cron that evaluate, okay, after this date, all these principals now can access to this information, no? And okay, we have the studies, the surveys, and here the test. Another important thing about the test is that you respond about yourself and you can respond about your leader or your teammates. And depends the test, you need to create a capacity for each case. And then with all this information, we can know about what your employees think about you. For example, if you are a boss about a team, then you knows what your employees thinks about you. And this is another important thing that the manager wants to know to evaluate all the company in this case. Here we can see different representation about the different capacities in each test. We have different renders for each test because evaluate different capacities. And finally, here we can see the traversal about this company, and this project. In the first level, we have always the company. Then we have a folder on when we save where we save the workers. Another folder where we save the studies and the organization chart. Here, it's in the organization chart. It's the place that we define all the access by default to each teams. And for example, in this case, team A can access to show the results about team B, and team B about work displays and workplace, and team C. But for example, if we have another team D in the same level about team A, team B, team A will be able to see the results about the both, no, because are brothers, but between them they can see only if you are above in the traversal. Here in a manager we have the same, no, and we can see, okay, the folders, the organization chart, and the studies. And inside the organization charts we have the teams, and here we have the results about the team, because for each worker we calculate the capacities. Also we calculate for each team because we want to evaluate the employee and the team. And in this case it's the average for each study at the workers answer. And here, more teams and workspace, and always is the same. No, here we can map the all traversal, and we can access directly for each object in all the levels that we have in this company. And then, another point of view about the organization and the traversal. So, and here it's the architecture that we have, no, in all projects that Niels now will explain.
So what you just have seen, the RP, so it's by default, it's out of the box from Guillotina, right? So this is the view that you have of all the objects. So it's out of the box. We haven't coded anything there, right? So that's another thing to take into account. Yeah, as Roger have said, this is more complicated than it seems, because every team has a lot of capacities. Because imagine that we are a team, right? So you are assigned a test, and you answer a test for each one of you, right? Then when you answer the test for each one of you, it creates a lot of capacities, right? That are your capacities that you have answered about you, and all of you, right? But you have answer of the group, but you will answer about me and the other teams of the group, right? So that will create a lot of more capacities in the same group, right? In the same team, it will create like, I don't know, 300 capacities just in one test that you answer, right? So there are a lot of capacities, there are a lot of permissions there. And what's important from that is that it matters a lot, the traversal and how these permissions are set. And the visualization date, it's important too, because you have to have a cron job there that it keeps looking for these capacities and check for the date, right? So which is the architecture? It's the Postgres, Elasticsearch, Redis, NATS, Jetstream, and Guillotina and React front, right? And that's not Jetstream, it's important because for every request, we might process a lot of capacities, a lot of objects. So imagine that the manager assigns a test to a group of people, right? And they are answering the test at the same moment, right? Maybe there are like 3,000 capacities at the same time being created, and we cannot wait for that. We cannot just push the button and wait for that. No, so we enqueue them in a NAT Jetstream, and we process them in a future, right? And that's a persistent queue that we have here. That's an important thing to take into account. That's what I was talking about. So when you create a test, when you answer a test, there are a lot of objects being created, and you don't want to wait. That's why we use this NATS Jetstream. Like we have a pod, a Guillotina pod that just keeps processing these capacities here. So yeah, who is the manager? The manager, as Roger has told you, is the one that creates the company, right? And the ones that creates the company has the majority of the permissions in a company. That's a sharing, similar than Plone, but with Guillotina. And if you take into account, it says, well, in the local, that's in the company, right? Just believe me. You just need to believe me, right? So what are the permissions that the manager, in this case, manager 2 test has? So it has all this bunch of permissions, right? So it can add content, modify content, delete content, access content. It can create gestio equipes, which is something that I'm gonna talk about later. And he can do all the things, right? Manager has the power to do everything. What about the workers? So imagine that we are in a team, right? Those are the those are the permissions that has on the company. And it allows Signal for access content and view content. Sharpa, Beura PDF 360 is just to push a button and to see a PDF, right? That's the permission. Don't take that into account. So what we are saying is that, okay, the principal, the worker, has allowed Signal in the same company because it needs to access the company. He needs to be able to go through that, right? To go through the company, but it's allowed Signal. It means that it will not have access to all his children, because then that will be a major bug. So what else? Teams and workers. Now imagine that. Do you remember Direccio, this team that Roger just told you that there were 2 users, right? So there are these 2 users here, and we tell them, okay, so you have access content and view content in that team, right? So that means that everything that is below, they will have access to that. Yeah, teams and workers. I think that's the same. That's the same slide than before, but by adding another team behind. That will be I don't know the name. Oh yeah, commercial. Yeah. So in this case, as you can see the traversal above, it says organigrama, Direccio, and commercial, and take a look in here. So we are checking the permissions on this team, and it says, well, I'm inheriting all the permissions that Direccio has. And which are the permissions that Direccio has? The other 2 users that were in the group above, right? In the Direccio. That's why these 2 users, Treballador 12 and Treballador 22, will have access to the commercial, because it's telling me here, okay, I'm inheriting all these permissions, so I will have access to that. And it will have access to all its capacities as well, because the capacities are in the same team, right? That means that the workers here, they are gonna be able to see all the results of the tests that are on those teams. That all the testing that they have done, all the capacities that have been created, they will have access there. But that's not the end of it. So yeah, we have the traversal. We have this big tree with teams and on place of workplaces. We have a lot of objects there, but our customer said, okay, I want to be able that, even though if we have a worker that's in the bottom of the tree, I want to be able maybe to see another team that is in the trunk of the tree, right? So, okay, that complicates more things, right? But we can do that. We can do that. Manager can do that because he has a special permissions that allows him to do that. We have an endpoint that to do that, right? So, and then it's a little bit more complicated because not only the team, the customer wanted to have access to the workers as well, but the workers are in another place or of the traversal. So we give access to the workers that are in another folder. So yeah, manager can do that. And it's complicated because it's all principles. There are no roles here. It's all principles because it needs to be modular. It needs to be atomic. So all these permissions they must be able to be changed. They need to be changed at some point in the future. So basically, that's what we have done until here. A complex tree, a complex solution where you can map the whole company with all the hierarchical structure that this company has. It can assign tests. It can evaluate workers, and that's useful if you want to evaluate, okay, are you a good leader or are you a good I don't know, are you a good worker that should be in another place, right? So depending on the capacities and on the results that you have achieved, then you can tell this person which its place of work should be, right? And we can check that in a historical reason because we are creating capacities over the time, right? And we can compare the evolution and the historical graphical. Maybe we can show that in a demo.
Yes.
Because I think that we have some time. Roger is gonna show you some results. This is stage. This is not production. For God's sake, I hope it's not. No, it's a stage. And we can compare workers. We can compare its capacities. We can compare their results among time. For instance, let's see, because now I don't remember if probably disk, yeah. Or perfil profesional, probably. Crux, yeah. We have been playing around.
Here we can see 3 different studies, but in this case only this user
he has answered only one of
only
28
in the first, but if they answered the other studies, we will be able to show.
So this user has been assigned a study, but he hasn't answered yet, right? If not, it will appear here in the middle of the screen. So you can basically you can track the evolution of a worker and how it behaves with time, actually. Yeah, for instance, there were some there. Yeah. There's this capacity here, as you can see, with the 4. Now these values here are calculated by the boss, by our customer. He wants like, okay, it's gonna be that's going to be a value of from 1 to 10. So just make sure that when you answer ABC, when you answer the B, it gives you a value of 2.
And here, for example, you can compare different workers and different teams. And for example, if you are able to access to each different teams, you can compare. In this case, you can compare all the company because you have access for all the teams. And we can, for example, select these teams, and then go to here, and we can see the difference between the different teams.
Yeah. So
and in this case, it's when the access content and beyond content is important to send. Because, for example, if we have access to some teams but not for any worker, we only are be able to see in the teams. But for example, if the manager says, okay, this worker is be able to see all information about the workers in a team, this worker then can compare between the teams and between the workers.
So we can compare teams as well, because we have all the capacities, all the medians and all the averages of all the teams, and we can say, well, imagine the front-end team and the back-end team. I don't know, I'm just making this up, okay? So you can say, okay, how they behave on time, but by time, I mean, who is better than other ones, or which are the weaknesses or the other? I mean, you can compare them, and that's the real value of Sharpa, actually, that you can compare teams and people. And then you can say, okay, so maybe we need to improve on that field. Maybe we need to improve that team. Maybe we need to add more people. Maybe this team needs less people because, or maybe this team needs a leader. And you can decide that.
Here we can set in which teams or which workplaces each worker can allows to see, and we can create, for example, here, and then we can set, okay, for this worker
So we have granted now
can
Hector
access,
Grenhall can access this workplace now.
and in this workplace there are another worker, and then you can access for, and then
So we just
deny
have
it's
given
the same.
access there, and if we'll make a sharing right now, we will see all the permissions there. And we can delete as well. And that will be all, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any questions. Thank you.
You mentioned that you had a processing queue.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you can store in the future.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that there is an agent consuming this queue.
Yeah.
Is this also out of the box in Guillotina, or is this something you implement?
No, we made that.
Okay.
We made that not jet stream, actually. Yeah, this one is actually we made that. Yes, there is no specific package for that.
We have an extra worker only to calculate this.
And in this case, we make sure that after, because we open a new transaction with the database, we make sure that all the indexing happens before this transaction closed, because we want to make sure that this is indexed.
Do you have any kind of feel for what the performance difference might have been if you'd done this in Plone, or the memory kind of footprint of Guillotina versus Plone?
I really do not know that.
Fair enough.
I do not know that, but we use Elasticsearch a lot. I mean, internally in this project, we usually use it everywhere. I don't know how this will behave with Solar and Plone. I'm not sure, but I feel pretty comfortable with that. I know that it will work, so I didn't want to risk it, but I don't know really. It should be a good exercise to do.
I don't know if I remember right, but doesn't Guillotina come with search from Postgres as well?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah,
And you just
default
ignore
it's
that
Postgres.
and just did that custom.
By
Elastic.
default is Postgres, but you can adapt this catalog
Okay.
to use Elasticsearch.
But that's your custom code, or you?
No, that's Guillotina
That's Guillotina
Elasticsearch.
has a you can. Okay.
It's on GitHub.
I
It's
see.
on GitHub on the Plone repository. It's already coded there.
Okay.
It has its own parser, so it has the same API than Plone.
Gotcha.
It has its own parser, and we have modified it a little bit in order to add analyzers and different language and tokenizers. You can do that right now. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.